Hello, students. This four-part online module deals with leading-edge thinking in education, specifically how learning and teaching have been reconsidered through complexity science perspectives and related influences like systems thinking and ecology. They sound challenging, yet they're very practical perspectives that ground teaching in 21st century realities. My job here is to explain them to you as clearly and concretely as possible, then engage you in some online activities and reflections that make use of or enact these perspectives. First, a little personal background. I have been an idea nerd for quite some time now. As a university student, I was bothered by scientific approaches that assumed they could get final and objective truth about the world, even though the theories and paradigms they use seem to change every 20 years, and that everything could be explained through mechanical reasoning. In fact, I remember having a debate with a philosophy grad student whose supervisor thought that moral choices could be reduced to propositions within a computer program. Not surprisingly, this morality computer amounted to nothing. At the same time, I was bugged by social science approaches that confidently asserted that everything was just a social construction, and that issues like bodily health, learning exceptionalities, and so on were only a matter of individual experience, cultural norms, and power relations, as if our physical, biological, and ecological history had no influence. Here's another good anecdote. One of my relatives during his graduate studies thought that the cold was just a state of mind and that he could walk barefoot in the Canadian winter. Needless to say, he quickly had to rethink that one. In any case, I was unsatisfied by both of these extremes. Then I took a part-time Masters of Education course and started to learn about complexity science with a Canadian educator, Brent Davis, who was then starting to be recognized as an international leader in that area. The new approaches I'm describing here can also be seen in the fourth moment of a book he co-authored in 2015 called Engaging Minds, 3rd edition. For me, complexity science and related approaches like systems thinking and ecology offered a way to get over the old dichotomies and take a more intelligent and realistic approach to life, education, and specific issues like what is learning and how can we support it? How should we think about student exceptionalities? How can we organize classes in a way that nurtures individual diversity, yet at the same time creates a learning-focused classroom collective? So what is complexity science? One good way to explain it is to contrast it with traditional approaches that came before. Scientists in the last 500 years had a lot of success with mechanical reductive approaches. For example, you can understand a clock well by taking it apart into its component pieces, and you can precisely measure and predict what a billiard ball will do if you hit it with another billiard ball. These are examples of simple systems. Educators have tried to apply this sort of thinking to teaching, for example, through factory-like classrooms, inflexible learning objectives, standardized tests, and behaviorist training. The results have generally been poor. The reason is that this sort of mechanical, simple system approach does not work very well for living systems. For example, you can't understand or predict my behavior by chopping me up into my component organs. In fact, by taking this approach, you would destroy the very complex system you're trying to understand. And as we parents know, we can't exactly predict or control what a child will do based on our input, no matter how hard we try. Scientists across disciplines have therefore begun to develop new ideas and tools for understanding and dealing with complex living systems, whether they be organisms, human brains, social groups, cities, or ecosystems. One idea is emergence. Complex systems emerge from the interaction of their component parts, the way I emerge from my component organs, or the way social norms and changes emerge from the interactions of individuals. But unlike simple systems, complex systems are more than the sum of their parts, because something new emerges at the level of the whole system. For example, my choices and actions, or new social trends. Again, these cannot be understood or predicted just by adding up component parts. Two other new conceptual tools are self-organization and adaptation. Complex systems adapt to their experiences and contexts, the way species adapt to their environments. Unlike machines, which require an outside designer to redesign or fix them, Complex systems adapt themselves in a self-organized way. Examples include the way you have adapted your thinking based on your experiences and education. Other examples of self-organization and adaptation are the way our immune system reorganizes its activities to adapt to new germs in our environment. The way our brain and nervous system change themselves based on our experiences, for example, learning tennis or music. At a more collective level, they can be seen in the way companies reorganize their activities based on supply and demand conditions in the marketplace. It can also be seen in the way sports teams have to adapt to new strategies and playing styles. For example, in basketball, the Golden Warriors' three-point shooting, or Barcelona's possession and passing approach to soccer, or the increased speed of modern hockey. The way classroom interaction and culture change when a new teacher arrives and employs active learning, cooperative groups, and so on can also be seen as an example of self-organization and adaptation. Finally, this sort of adaptive self-organization can be seen as learning. In fact, Jean Piaget, the godfather of constructivism, used exactly these terms to ground his theory of learning. So the last thing I want to emphasize is that we should see learning in this complex biological way. That is, as adaptive reorganization of our beliefs, our schemas, neurons, or social interactions, rather than seeing it as taking in knowledge into our heads as if our heads were containers, or being behaviorally trained like input-output machines. What does this mean for understanding the world generally and education specifically? Those will be the topics of the next few submodules. For now, let's do a fun activity and try to help you consolidate your understanding of these ideas.